I was backstage having an opportunity to obsess about this blouse that apparently B. Arthur would be wearing on the Golden I'm like buying these things, but it's wrong with me. Because I have an illusion I'm tall, which is another thing that is wrong with me. I do. I can't. People say you're so short. You say, what are you talking about? I'm a very tall woman. So whatever. But I am the Jew who grows in Chelsea. In case you hadn't guessed that. And I want to grow because that's why I chose that song, because this is all too short. But I am living in the same apartment where I spent the first 18 years of my life. And it's not a wow, it's a little peculiar. First of all, it's haunted by my parents. That's one of the difficult parts of living there. And I was smoking a lot of pot. And we were both native New Yorkers, and we made our decisions based on the strength of the pot we were smoking. So we decided, we're living in the greatest city in America. This isn't working. Let's go to some, dull, boring. Let's go to a coma with cactus. Let's go to Arizona. So we did. We took the VW van with the cats, of course, because that's all we owned. And we went to Phoenix, Arizona. There was the 70s. Nothing was there. Nothing. One store in the entire city of Phoenix that sold good bagels. And on Sunday morning, every Jew in town would be lined up. Both of us were there. And we would turn to each other and say, can you believe this line? So, came back and went to court. Actually got the apartment. I remember there was a woman who lived across the street, and now what are townhouses that cost millions of dollars. Then they were like 15 apartments in one building and 25 people in each apartment. And there was this woman who would, in the summer, she'd lean out the window naked, and her apartment was on the 4th floor, her breasts were on the 3rd. So now what happened, the next stage was the gay guys moved in. Thank God they arrived, really, because they made the neighborhood festive, very festive. Good restaurants, good store, things opened up. And now we have the young couples who've taken too many fertility drugs.
That's right, yes.
And have too many fucking children, okay? You don't see one carriage anymore. The least you're going to see is 2 attached. I have seen 3 attached, and no one believes this. I have seen 4 attached. With the family dog at the end, like, can't keep up. And the dogs in Chelsea? There are so many dogs in Chelsea, and I have noticed that they're either very big or very small. The mid-sized dog has disappeared. It's the same thing as happening to the middle class. So. Oh, God, help us all, seriously. So Chelsea had, it had its share of perverts then, but it was a different time, a different kind of pervert. I remember I was walking down the street Christmas Eve with my closest girlfriend, a little Japanese girl named Leland, and suddenly there's this guy in front of us in a trench coat, of course, and now he'd have the van and the duct tape and the chloroform. He'd be writing a script for Criminal Minds. So all this one did is he whipped open his trench coat, and he wanted to show us he had a red ribbon tied around his penis, because for Christmas, very festive. Who cared? I mean, who cared? I'm a Jew, she was a Buddhist. He should have gone 2 blocks away, there was a Catholic girls' school, and the nuns would have torn him apart. That's I go shopping at Whole Foods because, I'm on unemployment and I think I'm a millionaire. Same delusion as thinking I'm tall. So at Whole Foods on Saturday morning, you have the father of 2011 appears, all of them, and they're there to do the shopping with the baby. And they have the baby strapped to the front of them, completely covered. So it looks basically like a giant cantaloupe is under there, except for the little flailing legs. Like, Daddy, I can't breathe. But nightmare. It's a nightmare. The whole thing is a nightmare. I think about, he was the love of my life, this relationship I destroyed. I'm very good at that. I'm very, very handy. You want a relationship you're in to be destroyed, bring me in as a partner. I'll help you right out. But he ever since we stopped living together, I really had a few roommates, and then, since then, I've been living with animals. And, it's mostly, I have to say, it's mostly cats, because they're easy. And you can pretend you have a pet, because unbelievable. They're unbelievable. They're really, I think they're rather disgusting. I mean, first of all, they vomit constantly, and they don't vomit like, just normal. So you're never near them when they're going to throw up, and they make a sound alerting you. So you know that you're not going to get there in time. That's what they're doing. 3 o'clock in the morning on the pillow next to me, I hear, this is scary. I thought my boyfriend was having a heart attack. Then I remembered I don't have a boyfriend. They have shredded everything in my apartment also, everything, because I, of course, wouldn't declaw them, because I do think that's inhumane. So rather, there's nothing that's in one piece. Someone said, get the big poles with their tunnels and the things, and 5 minutes they'll be on that, and then they're back to the furniture. If I ever meet a man, I'm never going to be able to bring him up to that apartment. The only man I'll be able to bring up is someone who's homeless who'll be grateful for the warmth. And don't ever tell a cat person that you have bought a cat. Oh my God. And I have one, the little 17, she's a rescue, and I have a Maine Coon cat who's destroying everything in my apartment. He has applaud for the destruction. He is that big, and he's a klutz. He's a nervous cat, he's a klutz. I'm living basement, and they hate each other, so I'm in a house of hate, and, with the ghosts floating around, and the rent is basically rent stabilized, as stable as I am. That's how stable I am. But don't tell if you ever declaw a cat and you tell a cat person that they'll basically they'll look at you like, what, I'm a Nazi? I mean, there's such a, let me show you, in my closet I have an SS uniform, okay? That's how evil I am. And I take it out on occasion, I put on the boots, I goose step around the whole apartment, singing choruses of Uber Alles. What do you want from me? I wanted to buy a cat. So I did, and it's a nightmare. I want a dog again. I loved my dog. And they worship us, and we want to be worshipped. Let's face it, that's the reality there. We do. So we love it. I would leave my house for 5 minutes. The dog would come rushing up to me when I came home, be whirling around me. The tail is wagging. Just adored me. Come home, I could be gone for 2 months. The cat will give me a look like, oh, you're back, exactly. Yeah, you're back. You just woke me from my 23-hour nap. Thank you. This all started because when I'm an only child, and my parents always got animals, to keep me, but they got fish. What kind of company? It's dead in 5 minutes, number one. Floating on the top, the goldfish. Then they would get the little turtles that, what kind of a pet is a turtle? You pet it, you cut your hand open on its shell. And we had a parakeet, which I called Pudgy the Paranoid Parakeet. A very psychotic animal. It had a twitch in its wing, number one, and it never left its cage. We'd open the door, fly free, my little green friend, fly free. It never left, it didn't want to. It didn't want to run into any one of us because it was a nightmare. House was a nightmare of dysfunction. It was a nightmare of dysfunction, and the screaming, and the yelling, and depression. Everybody was depressed. On the female side, where it counts for me, everybody was depressed. My grandmother became depressed when my grandfather died. My mother became depressed, or was depressed, until my father died. And I'm the Lexapro queen, so it was just gone down and down. It was a hysterical, everybody was always angry, screaming. It was like a bad Shakespearean play, like the taming of the Strolls, except no one got tamed. It was just a nightmare. And they had different methods with their anger. My father was, they call him now a rageaholic, because they have names for everything. Never hit anybody, but we'd always go out to eat because my mother wouldn't cook. It was nice. She hated being a housewife. So I'm a real bargain for a man at this point. Let me assure you I won't cook. I'm not going to do the housework. Fuck it all, not for me. So enjoy the cats for the rest of your life. So they would, we'd be out and then something would trigger his anger, and usually my mother, and he would start like banging on the table and screaming and waving knives in the air, and then he'd storm out. And you would think we would follow him, but we didn't, because the food was good and we wanted our doggy bags. My mother's style, completely different. My mother, when she got angry at me, she just stopped speaking. What was I supposed to learn from that? I didn't know what I did everything wrong. What was I should have learned to keep my diary locked in a hidden better place than a hidden better place. That's good. I mean, it's an aneurysm. I don't know what that was. Hidden better place. You never know at this point. Anything can happen. So my mother read my diary, so she found out I was having sex. And she found out that I was stealing from the best department stores in New York. I think she was a little proud that they were good department stores, Saks, Bergdorf. And the worst thing of all, she found out that I was taking a black guy to the Dalton senior prom. Now, number one, I hated Dalton. Let me tell you, that was the high school they sent me to. I despised it. It destroyed me emotionally. It has scarred me for life. It basically has. And because they were all very rich, and they were all very cliquey. They hated me. I hated them. So I had to survive. And it was all girls then. And I don't like anything. It's all anything with too much. It's like too many roaches or something. It's just, bring in some men. So I did, what I had to do to survive. I stole their money. And then I organized a vigilante committee to find the thief. Nothing if not enterprising. I came from the most progressive school in New York, in the East Village. It's no longer there. They basically shut it down. But they would, that was what I was used to. No boundaries at home, no boundaries at school. Pete Seeger's our singing teacher. I mean, twice a year they would drop us off in a Mennonite farm so we could learn how to make butter and soap and candles. Very practical for the future if there's a nuclear holocaust. And I survived. So